This is the Rising Tide Startups podcast, where we chat with startup founders from all over the globe to help you escape the cubicle and begin your own startup journey. Make sure you take notes. Every episode of Rising Tide Startups is sponsored by Podbrand Media. Let Podbrand create and host your company branded podcast. Learn more at podbrandmedia.com. This is Rising Tide Startups. This is Kevin Pruitt, and I have another great guest this week, James Pietruszynski. James, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
I want to ask you, just lay a good foundation for our audience. If you and I met at a networking event, how would you introduce yourself to me?
Great question, and I'll keep it short and sweet as I can. It is, I am a complex individual, but I'll keep it as short as I can. I am the CEO of SoulSight, which is both a passion of mine and a job. I'm fortunate to be able to do both. We are a full service brand design agency and work in multiple CPG, consumer packaged good categories, and then also branding, strictly branding areas where you might just see a brand that's not isolated to just what you can buy in the store or on e-commerce. But we build brands, and we try to. Our vision is that we make brands move. We make product move. And I've been doing this for about 30 years now. I am one of the OGs of SoulSight. I think I'm going on my 27th year.
Wow.
With the company. We started when we were there was 3 of us in 1997. We're up to about 80 with an acquisition that we just made of another agency in Florida that focuses more in the fresh and wellness space. So that's exciting. They have a full service in-house photo studio, which will be amazing for our clients to utilize with all the licensing laws and different added charges that are happening and occurring now, and being able to move quicker. So
plus you get a trip to Florida. I mean, there's always that benefit.
That's right. Yeah, that is very true.
You draw me nice Florida,
especially when we're located in Chicago. In
the winter, everybody wants to go to Florida.
February and March is a good time to get out of town.
Exactly.
But we are. My background is I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts with a focus in graphic design, but also am really interested in human science and cultural anthropology, and didn't realize when studying in school how those two marry so well with what we do with brand.
Yeah. When you said we build brands, I mean, the first thought that came to my mind was this whole idea that, what a crowded space, just the whole agencies that we can help you build your brand. And it's everything from somebody on Fiverr to, Madison Avenue and everything in between. So talk about how in such a crowded space, SoulSight kind of, finds its niche and really separates itself, from the competition. I mean, longevity is certainly, in your favor, but
sure.
What are some other, because it is, I mean, would you agree it is a crowded space?
It is crowded too. And it moves into different niches depending on what you're talking about with brand. So there's many different ways to split that up. I mean, we do strategy and brand planning, but then also do innovation, and then also work with iconic brands that have been around for 100 years that, need to come back to life or need to resurface in a new way. Yeah. So, but I think that the way that we like to talk about ourselves is that, we build with emotion, and looking at that emotional connection that really ties to the human and the products or service that we're trying to connect with. So there's numerous amounts of emotion. Most people can only, if you ask them what emotion they're feeling, there's usually only 3 or 4 that they can tell you or articulate. And that emotive space is really what we believe ties and connects people or consumers to become advocates for brands or it becomes part of their lifestyle. It becomes the brand that they want to have in their hand. There are, we look at both the intersection between human truths and product truths, and then what that subconscious emotional reason to believe is, and making sure that that ties to how it's reflected and engaged and how the brand is shown in the world, or the story it tells, or how it comes to life. It can be visually, verbally, in many different ways, and how
Hmm.
that brand has to connect in a way so that it's all telling the same story. But the motivating emotion has been our core point of difference in focus. We all get briefs that have
Hmm.
an emotion, a reason to believe tied with a functional reason to believe, but those are usually subjective and determined
Right.
by a marketer or someone on the brand team that thinks that, oh, this is the emotion that we think we're going after based on the need that we know. We've been working on some proprietary research to really understand, like, that emotion, the reason, that emotion that we've called out, does it really resonate, and can we quantify that it's really building some traction with where we're moving, and does the work that we're producing really elicit that emotion to build that connection?
It is, I mean, as you were talking, I mean, there were so many like little mini follow-up questions that were racing through my mind, and my adult ADHD, I'm thinking, I got to block in here, but it's interesting when you talk about emotion. I mean, the thoughts that went through my mind is, are you trying to identify an emotion that a customer is feeling and match that, or are you trying to elicit an emotion in a customer? Are you trying to, I mean, that seems like it's like there's a wide chart,
Yeah,
in the
great
emotive
question.
responses. So,
Great
or
question.
is
I
it a
think
little
the
bit of both?
I think you're right. I think it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg kind of
Hmm.
situation, because a brand has to elicit an emotion. People come to the brand in a different emotional state. So
Right.
what is that emotional state or need? And then playing back, what is the emotion that's going to complement and kind of fit together like a
That's a
puzzle
great word.
to pull things together?
Yeah, I mean, I love the word compliment. I mean, how you frame that right there, because I mean, you can elicit emotion in me, but if it's not something that I need or it doesn't resonate with me, the emotion may resonate with me, but the product may not, because I don't need hair products, based on an eighth inch scalp here. So, the idea that, yeah, I can feel emotional about losing hair, as a near
Yeah.
retiree, but yeah, you're not going to go go along with with the hair products, but um, if you are, I mean, there's obviously a lot of front end work, on a product where
Mhm.
you're doing market research and testing and having focus groups and things like that. So if you are really trying to like identify kind of this emotional connection, and are you selective on like brands you work with? Because it's kind of hard to get emotional over garbage bags. I mean, it's,
Well,
yeah. Is there a, or am
there
I?
is,
Are you going
we
to
are not.
you correct that for me?
I will correct you that people can be emotional about the type of garbage bags they use, and what that feeling is. When is it going to be secure? Is it going to be,
Yeah. Does
people
it
are
smell
thinking,
good?
yeah, does it smell good? Is it going to hold what, is it going to fit in the can that I have in my kitchen? And
Oh, what
like,
a,
what
yeah,
does it mean when I'm
great.
cleaning up? Like, what does it feel like when I'm cleaning up after dinner or picking up the house? There's an emotional state there that, is either really can be exhilarating for some people, or it could be, you know, I could be annoyed and disgusted that I have to pick up after my kids, so there
That's a
is an
great point.
emotion that
Great
happens there.
clarification.
And that this came up years ago when a marketer once said, I was working on a mint, we were working on a mint brand, and they
Hmm.
said, well, mints don't have any emotion. Like, you just put it in your mouth so you don't have bad taste, and you have fresh breath. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The mint is giving the person confidence so
Yeah,
that they can, comfortably feel like they can engage in conversation, and enjoy whatever, enjoy, and not have to think about, you know, am I am I annoying this person, by the way that my breath smells. And the mints also have an exhilaration effect in just kind of like the neuro sense. Like, I'm not a neurologist, but in a neuro sense, where it has like
hmm,
an uplifting, like kind of almost like caffeine does, but in a more organic way, where it kind of like has an uplift. So, and we were able to prove that through talking to people. So, it's not like I'm not the type of person to go back and say, I told you so, but it is, it's fascinating too, to even think about, we do work some in paper goods, like in toilet paper. And you would say, well, what's the emotion? Why
Hey,
is
got
there
that
emotion behind
squeezable
the toilet
Charmin
paper?
from years ago. That's right.
I mean, it's fascinating that people, when they go on vacations, they'll pack toilet paper
Yep.
to go with them. So
Yep.
yeah, it's amazing.
Or when COVID hits, you store it up.
Stack
That's
up.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Had it all in my garage half full. Yeah, I it's interesting. You talk about, I think you mentioned earlier, you said we build brands with emotion. That's kind of the key word there, with emotion. So is is every buying decision somehow, a byproduct of an emotional like catalyst or emotional response?
So we've done some research working with, there's been a lot of research that's done out of Harvard. And then there's a gentleman that we've been working with out of the University of Illinois that will argue that all of our decisions that we make are between 75 to 95% unconscious. So though, and through emotion.
Mm-hmm.
We may not know that that emotion is moving around in our brain as we're moving through the day, or we're choosing objects to purchase or buy, or we're looking at something that piques our interest. But
Yeah.
the studies that they've done and the way that they've been able to do some, mind mapping, they've been able to confidently say that most of what we do and the most of the decisions we make, like the hat that you chose to wear, to
Yeah.
put on today, are made with some emotional context.
I if you're reaching out to potential clients, and like, yeah, I'm the chief marketing officer, I'm a CEO of a company or whatever, a brand you want to work with. Are you leading with that? And does that even, I mean, we talked about, customers and clients are purchasing, around emotion. But what about your clients? Does it resonate with them when you're talking about the emotion around, product purchase, or the emotion around, how people respond to their products? Do most people get it at this, in 2024?
No, not everyone gets it. I think it's because it's hard to put ROI on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but once you see product performance and then you see, the work that we've done and the impact it makes, obviously there has to be something there that keeps us keeps us in business, but then also we have a great retention with our clients. So
Mm-hmm.
we've had some clients for 20 years. We've had some clients for 10 years. So they understand that there's something there that is different than maybe what another agency might be
Right.
offering or maybe understand. Part of it goes back to, even if it's hard for people to think about what emotion it is, we can move over to empathy and talk about
Mm-hmm.
how can we be empathetic to the needs of the brand, the needs of like who the brand is for, the audience, but then also the needs of what's happening within our client's business and organization and what they need in order to grow or move. So, empathy is a good way to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
as a lead into to emotion, because they're quickly tied to each other to
Mm-hmm.
to gain understanding.
If you hear the word brand a lot in marketing, and when I think of brand, I mean, obviously, as a layperson, I mean, the thing that I immediately go to is like the logo, the colors, the way it's positioned, that type of thing. But brand has as much to do with perception of the client or the customer than it does what I'm trying to project. So I'm going to leave it to the experts. You being the expert of the two of us on the call, you being the expert, define the word brand as you guys understand it, as you use it.
So I think it's a great question, and you know, I would answer it in a couple of different ways. I think brand is a living, breathing, almost innate object that
Mm-hmm.
can be living through you, or in space, or be a physical object. So, it has that ability to. I just watched 60 Minutes last weekend. They were talking about quantum physics and these mega computers that are going to exist.
Yeah.
I almost think about brand as living in this quantum space.
Mm-hmm.
It has this dimensionality that is part of me, part of you, part of the person that's interacting with the brand. It can be color, it can be shape, it's all of these visual elements and all of these sensorial pieces that are all coming together to define something that is ownable and unique and different than something else.
And I mean, is it a moving target?
I think
Is
it
it is
can
it
be.
constantly evolving or
I think it,
changing?
I think they I think we that's a it's important, I think, for brands to be current and keeping up with what's happening in culture in order to stay relevant. I think relevancies becomes more important as things have moved so quickly. I mean, you look at what has happened in the past 4 years and how quickly brands have had to pivot and move
Hmm.
and grow in different areas,
Yep.
focusing maybe more on e-commerce than they would have typically focused,
Hmm.
and C-store than they would have typically focused on, huge brick and mortar club experiences.
Right.
I know I'm talking more about CPG here, but there
Hmm.
are a lot of other, possibilities and opportunities that are opening up for brands that, there may be things that were going away that aren't working anymore, but there are a lot of opportunities that are presenting themselves as we move forward.
Are there companies out there that you've seen that are just knee jerk around their brand? Do they, they're just changing it every 18 months because they think that, we live in such a dynamic, culture, environment, whatever, or they're so I guess, myopic that they're just looking at the, oh, we don't have the return on our investment that we need. So we're going to really move the needle by just beefing up the logo, changing the color. It's almost like A/B testing with your brand, type thing. Do
Yeah.
you see clients out there doing that?
Yeah, I think it's so there's two answers there. Well, the first part of your question, I think, is we do see a lot of what I call stunt marketing, where it's I want some instant results.
Yeah.
I want to make some noise. I want to get noticed. But a lot of that is short-lived. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it is not even really connected to what the brand purpose is. It's
Mm-hmm.
done for the sake of grabbing attention. And we've seen a lot of that fail. We've seen some
Mm-hmm.
of it is like lightning in a bottle, and it is spike, a short spike of
Like
growth.
vanity metrics almost.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I say, like, when I think of branding, I think of it. I was a runner, so I think of it as it's not a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
It's a marathon. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're always moving. You're always moving forward. If you're going to do things responsibly. With the second part of my question is, you run into clients with that have a lot of risk management and worrying about, especially their iconic brands,
Mm-hmm.
losing an identity or losing
Yep.
current consumers or losing the current target that they're getting. But shepherding the relevancy of what that iconic brand means really and breaking it down for them helps eliminate some of that risk as we move forward. Like you know, rarely 100-year-old brand goes through like a major overhaul, so it's
Mm-hmm.
unrecognizable to the consumer or people that deal with it, daily or weekly. I think a good case scenario is like it's best if they notice that nothing really changed, but
Mm-hmm.
they're able to find the product but easier in the store, or they're able to see that, wow, this brand has a lot more to offer for me than I ever knew.
Yep.
So there are different ways to think about that, the risk management of how we move forward. But it's with all the experience that we've had in working in different categories, and I worked in, SoulSight has worked in every different
Mm-hmm.
category in the marketplace, some more than others. But, I think the, what I often have to remind myself and we have to remind our clients is we're still serving humans. Like
Mm-hmm.
they shop in all of these different
Yeah.
categories, and they use all of these, like these categories apply to all of the same type of person. So like going back to the emotion and the person becomes so much important, so becomes important, but then there has to be a functional need that is solving a problem
Right.
for somebody.
Right. I uh I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking of, like Nike as a great example of a company that refreshes itself all the time, but it's still that orange box with that white swoosh on the side,
Yes.
at the end of the day. And another thought that came to my mind as you were talking is, like talk about iconic brands. If you look at the four major sports, in Chicago area, they all have a long-standing history, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, hockey. I mean, they are iconic brands that are they seem to be very reticent to change,
Yeah.
and refreshing their logos and image and branding or whatever. But it doesn't always take. You got to change the logo, you got to change the colors, or you got to change whatever. I mean, there's a lot more to this, how your clients perceive you, as what's their perspective on your product, on your service. But I it's a great time to just take a break to hear for our sponsors right now. But when we come back, I want to dive down a little bit more into kind of the leadership side of James here, and just really hear his heart and lessons learned as he's kind of walked as the CEO of SoulSight.
And now here's a quick word from one of our new sponsors on Rising Tide Startups.
At Navicus, we know you spend far too much time on administrative tasks. Let us take those off your plate so you can focus on the highest value activities in your business. We have highly trained, highly vetted specialists ready to take on those administrative responsibilities at an affordable and effective rate. Check us out at navicus.com, proud sponsor of Rising Tide Startups podcast. We are back, and what a great chat today, man! It's like been a master class on just how to brand,
Thank
and
you.
appreciate your time, James Pietruszynski. And James, thanks for once again for joining Rising Tide. As I mentioned right before the break, I wanted to talk a little bit about just your own leadership, your leadership style, your what drives you, what's your DNA, as far as leading a company that has been around for a long time. And I think you mentioned somewhere between 80 and 100 people you've got on staff
Mm-hmm.
now. So talk about just a couple of really key lessons you learned, and actually you can kind of lay the foundation. When did you step into the I am the man in charge, role for SoulSight?
So it's been about a year since I've been the CEO of SoulSight. I've served as the chief strategy officer, the chief marketing officer. I've served as a creative director, art director, senior designer. I've answered the phones, taken out
I came
I've
in and
done,
started emptying trash cans when I first got there.
yeah, exactly. Like nothing is beneath, even now, nothing is beneath making it work. And it's all part of it. And everyone's contribution is part of what makes us great. It's not, it's not just the creative directors. And the one thing that I've learned in this business too, is that, you have to have a lot of drive, and you have to have a lot of passion for what you do. I've seen a lot of people come and go from an organization who may be very talented, but there's not a passion there to like really, they get beaten down by the system. It's not, and you have to realize that when you're working in our industry, you're working as a collaborator, and collaboration not only within our organization but with our clients, and how we collaborate with them, and how they're collaborating with their managers or CEOs. So it's really the piece around collaboration becomes extremely important in terms of how we have managed. And really when we founded our agency, we put the stake in the ground that we're a people first organization. And I read this somewhere, but it struck home that the CEO really only has one job, only has three jobs that they need to fulfill. One of those three jobs is take care of the culture, take care of the people, and take care of the finances. So, as you think about all of those three together, they're all essentially important to keep the balance of a healthy business. And making sure that you're not over investing in one area over the other to give false impressions of where we might be going, or what the mindset of where we need to go. Like, we need to pay the bills, we need to pay salaries, but we also need to take care of people and their, well-beings and their personal lives, and, thinking about taking care of 80 people and their families. And, I haven't done the math to go on to see like how many more people
Sure. What's the
do we
impact?
actually support,
Yeah.
with this business. But, I like to think of myself as a real, as a people person, and making another piece of learning that I've learned over the years through myself is that we're all responsible for the energy that we bring to every meeting, every interaction with anyone. So if I tell my team, our team knows you're responsible for the energy that you bring to the room. And especially in a creative environment, it becomes super important. Everyone knows creatives can be a little bit more sensitive than, maybe a finance team or a engineer, but it's really important to make sure that allows them a safe space to create their best work. And it's okay to let go of things that aren't working, that you have passion for the good of the project or of the agency. So that relationship piece and the support piece that tie back to and that people first organization has been something that we've really, really pushed hard with, and have gotten good results with finding the right people to work together. Like every once in a while someone doesn't fit, and that's okay. Like we're not the agency for everybody, and not everyone wants to collaborate, with different people every single day. I think as moving into the CEO role, I think the financial obligations of like looking at, understanding a P&L sheet and understanding some of the finance acronyms that I didn't go to business school to learn.
That's right.
Have been actually interesting. It's one thing to understand, but we also try to push the notion of being a learning organization, and push yourself to
starts at the top.
Yeah, push yourself to learn. There's things I don't know. Like there are things that and hierarchy is not. I mean, I wouldn't say we're a flat pancake, because there is a hierarchy to how we work, but that doesn't mean that, because I'm CEO or someone else may be the CFO, that they're more important to the organization than someone who is a creative director or a designer or an account manager or a strategist. Like their contributions of everyone are important to the success that we build together. Right. The we mentality. And I know that sounds cliche because a lot of people use it, but with that too, I don't want to make it sound like it's a clubhouse either, or a fraternity or sorority. We are an entrepreneurial organization looking to push and grow and push on each other to push and grow in new and different ways. So that learning piece has us pushing into spaces. Sometimes we go down paths that don't work, and that's okay. We learn something and we readjust and pivot and move into a different direction. So, we're not going to get it right every day. And I think it's just okay to give yourself the permission to say, it's okay. I got it wrong. Let's begin again. Or that didn't work. Let's try something else.
Right. I just had a wise mentor one day that told me, hey, if you're not making a mistake a month, you're probably not pushing hard enough.
Yeah.
You're probably not trying. So
I often say, if things seem easy, we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right. I think I saw somewhere where, I don't know if it was on your website or just some notes I had or whatever, just really, there was kind of how SoulSight is evolving around this idea of empathy, trust, and transparency. You talked around those a little bit, but are those three key words really key, and why?
Yeah, I mean, our key values are passion, growth, and respect. So like basic human traits that we, maybe a little altruistic to be at all the time, but those are the ones that we strive for. I think our North Star is, to always be at our best with a mindset of empathy, which I talked about in the work that we do, and always be quick with action for evolution. So we can't rest on our laurels. We have to keep moving. We have to move quick, and creating a sense of belonging in that culture and putting people first has built this have built impact players that have been with us 10 to 15 years that are helping engage and grow the next generation for SoulSight. Like I want a legacy of this place to be, to last, another 50 years or, whatever it may be for what we do. Who knows what the future holds, but yeah, and, really the idea of listening to learn and understand is something that becomes important at any level, but especially in the leadership position that I'm in, really having to listen to understand and not get defensive about what I'm hearing, and understand that, we don't always need to focus on what's not working, but we can focus on what's working too and double down there and understand how we move forward. So, it is more of a mindset, and they're two simple words that, might sound a little hokey, but I talk a lot about joy and inspiring joy and what we do. And I mean, we get to work on, the work we do is joyful. It's fun to see. It's interactive. It's creative, and it's fun to work with people that have that same passion and mindset. And the other one is love. And I think, like, I've talked about this with other people, that you got to love yourself. You got to love the work, but we have to love each other in order to move forward. And it, not to sound too preachy, but like really that emanates, and that people can feel that when they work with you. Clients can feel that you really do care. I can't,
and they can see when you don't.
Yeah, true. And I can't tell you the number of times that people have, I've asked questions about people's, child or a vacation that they went on, and they said to me, "Man, you have a great memory." Funny thing is, I can remember. I'm better at remembering, things about people and individuals than I can remember phone numbers. So, like it's the little fun fact that I can remember where someone vacationed 5 years ago, but I can't remember their street address or what town they might live in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, hey, there's an emotional connection to things you remember. So, maybe it's, you need a vacation or something. There's something, right. Your body's telling you something, but,
and
and
and when I say, like, this is going to sound really out there too, but like we talk about our vision as wanting to be the most sought after agency in the universe. So like aiming high and big. And that's done through focused organic growth. That's done with acquisitive growth, as I talked about this agency we bought in Florida. And, the next is, how do we move into a global space? Like, how do we get into a global space where there's more understanding and bringing, what we've done here for the last 27 years, and expand the footprint to make a bigger impact and allow us permission to work on even larger brands than we do today.
It is, it's an amazing story. And I just really appreciate you taking time today and just sharing with our audience, but actually, like, I was not being trite when I said, this has been a kind of a branding masterclass, at least a 101 masterclass, to intro to branding type situation. But James, it's just been a pleasure to connect with you and just hear your story and the successes and struggles and, learnings and everything around the whole idea of leading a major branding organization like SoulSight. And just really appreciate you taking that time. And once again, just playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Thanks again. Have a great week.
Thank you so much.
I hope you heard some great takeaways from our guests today. Make sure you reach out to them, and thank you again for playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide.